Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we are talking about, of course, Mr. Isaac Okoro. Shout out my coworker, Michael Scotto. And the report that we're hearing right now, yes, is that Okoro will either re-sign with the Cleveland Cavaliers, either on the qualifying offer and re-enter free agency next year, or on a multi-year deal. And the latter option being sign and trade. Now, what are we looking at specifically? I personally do believe that Isaac Okoro is a guy that people want. The biggest takeaway, what we understand as this NBA offseason has progressed, Michael Scotto has, reported that nearing the end of July, the Cavaliers are deciding whether they will engage in a signing trade or re-sign Okoro to the qualifying offer or to a multi-year contract. We'll talk about the re-signing option first, then we'll get into the trade talk at the end, as the trade talks allegedly could be built around a deal for either Dorian Finney-Smith or Cam Johnson. The Cavaliers have the full bird rights on Isaac Okoro, and obviously they very much value his all-defensive team capabilities and his improved three-point shot and efficiency. Now, the team needs to choose if they want to, start to duck and learn, basically if they re-sign Okoro to a multi-year deal, they're going to have to think about the luxury tax, and that could necessitate them either trading away Caris LeVert or Georges Niang to avoid exceeding the tax limit. Alternatively, they could sign Okoro to a multi-year deal, have this first year be a certain amount of money under the salary cap, and then the next couple years. So basically it would be, he wants, I think, closer to 15. They're looking at 10. And if you see how it's coming along, you would think, okay, the Cavaliers currently have, before getting to the cap, they can do, I think, like a $10 million, $8 million deal. It would keep them below the tax. So if they are currently a non-tax-paying team and they want to keep Okoro, they could say, hey, we have the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. That is still available to us. So we could go ahead and offer you this season, because we will not be able to, we don't want to get into the tax next year. So the Caps, their salary right now, they're at, I guess, like 200. I mean, damn, it can get dicey. So right now, they're at $159 million. $159 million. But down the road, the next year specifically, they're already looking at 180. So in their minds, they want to give Okoro probably, hey, what if you take an $8 million deal this year, and then we'll pay, the deal would be set up maybe 12 next year, 16 the following year. So you get a 3-year, $36 million deal, but it's structured in a way that it's backloaded. And that way we can keep you on the books. And then next year we can make the decision of either keeping you, or at the deadline, at this year's trade deadline, of either keeping you or trading Georges Niang or trading Dean Wade or trading Caris LeVert, who's an expiring. Now, if that doesn't work out, they could choose to sign him to a 1-year, $11.83 million deal, which will keep him under the tax, which gives him a no trade clause for the season and allows him to be an unrestricted free agent next year. If this does happen to be the route that they take, Cleveland would move above the luxury tax threshold and would have to need to trade Okoro or another player to stay below the limit, which they could do easier than not, because they could just say, okay, we are going to move off of Ty Jerome. We are going to move off of Sam Merrill. That could actually realistically happen right there. Personally, I think what they rather would do is go ahead. They're at $161 million already. They probably want to give him like an $8 million deal this year, then tell him, hey, the deal will be a 3-year deal, 12 next year, 16, have it jump that way. And then that year, next year, you can make the decision about, do we keep him? Do we move on? So if that's what you're thinking about right here, I think you rather do that than have him. The qualifying offer is worst case scenario, in my opinion. So how do we move forward? So let's go ahead right here and put up the Cavaliers. George, it's just like, it's very, very, okay. So this team, if they're doing a deal, they don't want to be a luxury tax team. I think that's the whole thing, is they don't want to be a luxury tax team. So when we look at Okoro, I guess you would have to, I guess he's technically a free agent, so you have to go into free agency and sign him. What, they can't? 1 second. All right, Fanspo just kind of updated their thing. So it would be a 3-year deal. And like I said, I think if you do something like maybe that, when you have it like increase, I know this would just be maybe to entice him. Then it becomes a 3-year, $38 million. I just feel like this is a realistic deal for Isaac Okoro. 3 years, $38 million. And where's Isaac? And then we would trade him to the Nets right here. Now, this is where it becomes hard, because what would you, we're sitting here and we're looking at Cam or Dorian, right? That's my thoughts. I couldn't get 100% clarification. You can either aggregate contracts, and this is with the teams being non-tax apron teams. You can either, I can't get confirmation. Yes, you can either aggregate multiple contracts in a sign and trade, or you can do a sign and trade, and then because to make the money match, you can do multiple transactions at the same time. And then that, even though it's one big old trade, it's multiple different transactions to make one singular trade work. So either way, in this concept, either you can sign and trade multiple players now with the new CBA, or it's multiple similar transactions happening. So this is what we're going to operate under, that thought process. Now, I personally think, looking at this, I would want Cam Johnson. And the reason why I say that is, in this deal, I personally think if I were the Cavs, I would be like, all right, here's Isaac Okoro and Caris LeVert, and maybe 4 second-round picks. It can be any second-round picks. I'm just doing the first 4 that I see. And you just do a deal straight up like this. And in this deal, they're saying that the Nets are the winning team because they get Caris LeVert and they get themselves Isaac Okoro. I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, already this is a team that, if you look at the roster, they have themselves Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Caris LeVert, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, Georges Niang, Dean Wade, Jalen Tyson, Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill, Craig Porter Jr., and they would bring in Cam Johnson. So yeah, they're at 11 guys technically now, but you're obviously they bring back Imani Bates, Pete Nance, Isaiah Mobley. They could, but it's just, I look at that and I think, okay, the Cavaliers are a team that would benefit from getting a guy like Mr. Cam Johnson. Now, similar thought process, but the different for, let's do Dorian Finney-Smith, and you're like, okay, Dorian Finney-Smith makes less money, so who would you send in this case? I know they really like Dean Wade, and I guess Dean Wade could be the guy. Would you be able to do it if it was Ty Jerome? Yeah, you could also do it. What about this one? Because you give up less players. I mean, giving up more players, but you're giving up like ones that aren't as impactful. Again, they're saying that this is a deal that the Cavs would technically be losers, but I think to get Dorian Finney-Smith for 2 guys on expiring and then a guy on a sign trade, and you throw in multiple second round picks, and regardless, if you put in Dorian Finney-Smith or Cam Johnson, you could have a lineup of Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Cam Johnson, or Dorian Finney-Smith, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, and then regardless, if you give up Caris LeVert or Sam Merrill or Georges Niang or Dean Wade, you could have your bench. Yes, I think the bench is the biggest question mark here, but I don't think it's a terrible deal. But I do think you got to look at how you want to structure this, and I think that's definitely one of the bigger parts about all of this.